two bumps downwards, so to speak, for Nigeria, down 65 basis points today on top of the 0.5% we lost yesterday.
Yes.
Is this really a bump, just a bump on the way up, or do you think there's more to be concerned about?
Well, it's just market trends. I mean, looking at what the market has done year to date alone is still a fantastic story. As at the end of last week, the market was up over 10% for the first 2 weeks, despite that we traded only 4 days in the first week of the year, which is fantastic. One of the, even as of now, when you benchmark it with other markets in the world, you find out that this is still one of the fastest growing now.
But the big question is, it's sustainable?
Yes. It's just that some people are trying to lock in. You see some stocks have already done close to 20%, like in Nigerian Breeze at the end of trading last Friday was already up like 19%. So you see that people might want to just lock in and say, if I can gain 20% in less than 2 weeks, then it makes sense for me to lock in. And that's why you're seeing a bit of selling pressure. Also from the banks at, on the back of the AMCON news, there was a bit of rally. And now people are just going to take their profit. But overall, we see this rally being sustained, but you're going to see some volatilities in between.
Let's focus on the bank for a bit. And obviously, some news flow concerning their reporting standards. The Nigerian Accounting Standard Board is making some presentations to the banks, and I think they're insisting on some provisions. Can you just clarify to us the issues there?
Yes, I think it's just about movement of the banks, making them to report IFRS compliance. I mean, they want the banks to report with IFRS standards. And you see, now the NASB, that's the Nigerian Accounting Standard Board, is saying that you still have to respect the local GAAP guidelines.
For provisioning
in particular. Let's talk about provisioning. I remember sometimes in 2009, after the turbulence in the market, and the CBN had to come to the rescue of the banks. Now, having factored that the banks have taken a lot of provisioning, the CBN thought it would be unfair or too harsh to still make them take that 1% provision, because the GAAP states that even your performing loans, you should take at least 1% provision for the performing loans. So if I now ask them to take another 1% on even the performing loans, that would be too much when some of them are already down into reds, shareholder funds are really gone so bad. So the CBN was like, I'm going to waive it for you for 2009. Now, the prudential guideline that came out in May 2010, the CBN is even planning to even take it to 2%. But as of now, they are still pending, allowing the banks to still waive that section of providing for the performing.
And that is what NASB is picking up on.
So, but NASB is now saying, even if you adopt IFRS, which the banks are mandated to do from this year and next year, now the NASB is saying that you still must respect the Nigerian GAAP, saying that 1% provisioning for even your performing loan must be provided for your P&L. That's what the Nigerian GAAP is saying.
But what is the implication of all this? Because there are some concerns.
Very obvious. Like now, let's take, for instance, a bank that has a loan portfolio. Some of these banks now, the loan portfolio is in excess of trillions. So let's take one of the top tier banks saying has a loan portfolio of like 1.2 trillion. That's 8 billion US. And even by the time you dissect and you find that at least 1 trillion of that is actually performing, and you take 1% of that, that's 10 billion naira. It's still very huge by the time you compare it to what they're doing on the bottom line. So if you're not telling them to take a provision of that magnitude, it's definitely going to hit the bottom line. And even what has really driven the rally, I mean, the performance we've seen for the bottom line for Q1 and Q2 and Q3 has been that they didn't provide for those positions. But now, if they are mandated to take position in Q4, which is the audited, it's even likely that we begin to see for some banks that the Q4 will be lower than what they've reported in Q3. Because by the time they now factor the charge for the 1% for the performing loans, you find out that they're going to take a huge charge, which is going to really eat deep into the bottom line.
How do you see this whole scenario playing out? Because obviously some investors should be concerned about
Of course, investors are concerned. And I will even say that may be one of the reasons why we see them dumping the banking shares today and yesterday, because the news has been in the market for like 2 days now. And also the rally we've seen is on the back of anticipated numbers, because now we know that the banks, they have the December year end, and we're expecting them to come out with FY10 numbers, and which we anticipate will be good. But if you're now telling us that it's likely they take provisioning, so everybody will rework the models, and you said that probably looking at what I've gained in these 2 weeks, it's better for me to get out and let me just watch until I'm clear as to what the CBN is going to do. But overall, I believe the CBN is likely going to talk to the Nigerian GAAP, since IFRS is a global practice. I mean, that's like the international best practice practice as we speak. It gives you the opportunity. It even gives you the clarity. You know, the concerns that hung over this market last year as regards risk management, as regards corporate governance.
So
by the time you do IFRS, I mean, it makes you accessible. It builds up the confidence in the sector. And I think the CBN should be able to work with NASB to just find a middle point and let them just apply the IFRS.
Obviously, this whole issue of IFRS, Nigerian GAAP and so forth, raises that issue of the integrity of the financials of Nigerian banks. Okay. Obviously, that was a big issue in 2009.
Correct.
But where do you think we are on that point right now? Do you think things have changed dramatically?
Obviously, yes. I would say that all the concerns that the investors and analysts had prior to the intervention of the CBN in 2009 has been taken care of. You know, then everybody was like the regulatory framework was not solid enough. But coming off from the bailout that the CBN governor did in 2009, and aftermath of that, the pronouncement he's been making, it's very clear. Look at the prudential guidelines. He's stating clearly that, look, this game has to change. We are seeing an era now that a bank MD cannot spend more than a specified time. There's a limit to which the business you can do is segregating the investment banking from commercial banking. All these things state clearly that the era has changed. The story has changed. The corporate governance framework has been built. Risk management framework, in fact, is going to be supervising or examining the banks. Is going to supervise them based on risk management framework supervision. So overall, I think that the issues that were raised by the Nigerian GAAP will have been taken care of by IFRS because it's been adopted in other markets of the world. In the US market, that's what they use. In most developed economies, that's what they use. And we can see that the transparency is there. The corporate governance codes are really adhered to. So I believe there should not be an exception in the Nigerian market.